Good morning, and thank you very much for this opportunity to be here. At the outset, I'm really happy after the panel discussion. It looks as if the lubricant companies can live a lot more. In fact, Mr. Malhotra and Mr. Brar was so very emphatic that I think we have got a long way to go. And this also gives rise to a lot of expectations from the lubricant companies. How are we going to innovate? And how are we going to change and keep in touch with the disruption that's going on? My name is Prakash, and I've been with Castrol for a long time. That was my background before I joined here in GP Petroleums as the CEO. I did live in China for many years and also in Singapore. So when they were talking about the disruption already in China, I think it's for real, and you can really feel the vibration that's happening over there in this change process. So my topic for the next 10 minutes probably, I'll just touch upon briefly as to how we as a lubricant company are trying to keep pace with this sort of a disruption. But before we go into the subject, can we just play this? I was just reminded of Sholay. Tera kya hoga Kalia? Kalia is the lubricants and the fuels. So, is it possible to click on the...
Tera kya hoga Kalia?
सरदार, मैंने आपका नमक खाया सरदार.
अब गोली खा. कमाल हो गया.
Well, bach gaya. So which means the lubricant industry will live longer. Okay. A couple of slides on our company. We belong to the GP Global Group. Sometime back it was called as Gulf Petrochem, started by the NRI founders from Delhi, who has gone to UAE and started this company. It's now a conglomerate, about $3.5 million. I think its current number is 3.8. They are into practically everything as far as the petrochemicals and in the oil space. They are one of the well-known people in the group is well-known in Middle East. And in India, they've also acquired the assets from Shell and have a bitumen plant in Gujarat. They got one of the highest tankages for storing base oils and other fuels. Sometime in 2014, they acquired the company Saar Petroleum, which has been renamed as GP Petroleums Limited. It's a listed company, and I work for that listed company heading the operations. This company is predominantly into lubricants under the brand name IPOL, which has been there in existence for the last 40 years. The brand continues to be significantly known in the lubricant space. While in the automotive space, the company decided we need to take it up to the next level when the things are changing, when disruptive technologies are coming in. How does a lubricant company survive, and how do you really keep pace with the changing needs of the market? So we tied up with a premium global oil major called Repsol from Spain, and we have the exclusive license to manufacture and market Repsol in India. And we've also secured the license for the surrounding countries as well. What differentiates Repsol? Because when you come into the country, you are also one more lubricant coming into the already crowded market. So the only way is to differentiate, and how do we really differentiate is what value we add to the people in the country, to the norms that the government of India is following. And one of the USP or as a differentiator, what we try to come along is partnering with the OEMs. Fortunately, Repsol is a very strong partner with Honda and has been participating in races for the last 24 years, probably one of the longest association. And in the last 5 or 6, if you're a motor enthusiast, you would have seen Marc Marquez winning the World Championship on a consecutive years for the last 5 years. So the news in 2016 was that Repsol tied up with GP Petroleums, and with the ethos of Make in India, we manufacture the lubricant in our plant in Vasai, in Bombay. And we are fully compliant and ready for the compliance norms of BS6 with joint working with the additive companies and also with the OEMs. Since this is a passenger forum, I'll dwell more on the our developments and the activities which are connected with the passenger vehicles. While we do a lot of work on the motorcycle space, because all of us know that India has overtaken China in the growth in the motorcycles in the last couple of years, and the scooter segment being the highest growth segment. And Repsol is definitely having a solid space in that arena. However, in today's discussion is more on the passenger cars, and I'll really touch upon how the whole landscape is changing even in India. While China probably would have crossed the 20 million cars production, India is still around 3 to 5 million. But we do really see ourselves as becoming probably the 4th or 5th largest car producing countries by 2020. But the attraction for us is the vehicle park. We have a huge amount of vehicle park, which is the attraction for lubricant companies like us. And how do we really make them run efficiently as time goes by? The biggest change, what we see as most of the speakers and the panel members have mentioned, is the changing landscape of the people's mindset. The rural areas have really taken up on taking on to the new range of cars, the new technologies, and it was not only the domain of the urban class, but the rural classes straight away taken on to the new technologies, whether it's the mobile or in the transportation as well. I'll just touch upon what we mean by change in technology. The classification of API, I will not go into the details of it, neither am I a chemist, so I will not get too much into the details of that. But however, it's important to know what classification are the lubricants that goes into your vehicle. Interestingly, some time back, a lubricant company made an analysis, a survey. Do you know what is the lubricant you use in your car? I mean, I could possibly make an interesting survey here as well. Do we really know what lubricant we put in our car? Do we know what brand we want to put, and what is the brand the mechanic or the workshop is really putting into your car? Do you know the specifications what you put into your car? I'm sure, including myself, and before I came here, I did check what I put into my car, but otherwise, any day, if I've got a new vehicle, I'll really struggle to say what is the lubricant I put, because that's the way a lubricant is considered in the market. Whereas Mr. Brar and Mr. Malhotra said that when you go to buy a car, the consumer definitely knows which brand he wants to buy, because that's a social setup and an aura. But for a lubricant, you depend completely on somebody else, and even the cost of lubricant is so small that you think it is insignificant, but that's going to make or break your expensive vehicles. So it might just be good if you know a little bit about the lubricant and educate yourself as you go and buy and use an expensive car. So the classification of the API currently with those age-old cars, it's enough if we know that the SN specification of the API is what is currently being pushed. Now, I think the presentation from HPCL was wonderful, which actually articulated the chemistry of it and what are the API specifications we are moving in from SL, SM, SN into these categories, which are very much articulated on the packs. So when you look at the lubricant markets, what exactly is the trend of the lubricant which is actually trying to beat the disruptive nature? Now, when we say EV is coming in, we all think that that's the end of the lubricant, but we still have a long way to go. So what do we do? What does this trend really mean is we will be focusing on lower viscosity oils. But this is because it improves your fuel efficiency, it needs to reduce the particle emission, and when you do the lower viscosity, there is a danger of engine getting also heated up, so that you need to look at the lubrication part of it. So there will be work on additive technologies. So these are the trends in which it goes. So viscosity reduction, volatility control, and friction stability will be the three major areas all the lubricant companies work in conjunction with the additive suppliers as well as the OEMs. The entire BS6 trend will be driven by the OEMs or probably be driven by the fuel norms, which will make the OEMs develop the particular engines for that, and the lubricant companies will be waiting on the branch to fly in and adapt themselves to the situations. So there are three areas where we work on, which is on the low viscosity oils. As we understood from 20W50s, we are now talking about the 0W20, 0W16, 0W8 as well. The friction modifier, most important because OEMs always have a feel that the lubricants could cause damage to their engines, moving parts, and transmissions. And that's another area where we work very closely with the OEMs. And for the low-speed pre-ignition, there was a nice presentation in the HPCL presentation, which really mentioned about this. These are three areas where we have to work on. So if you really see the changing landscape, you can see that earlier the trend, I mean, if you see the blue part of it, this is the 15W40s, and you will see that's reducing. And it'll give rise to more of the 5W30, 5W40, and the Japanese have been pushing for the 0Ws, which will also come in once the BS6 norms kick into India as well. From Repsol, which is the brand which we sell in this partnership, we are fully geared up to meet the challenges of the country, of the norms which the government of India has stipulated, as well as working very closely with the OEMs. The major trend, as you see over here, is the products which we have launched in 2016. The motorcycle products were launched in 2017. We have launched the PCMO categories, and today we are also in full